So you have the current version of the GMAT exam on board. As you can see, there are 4 sections. You have your quantitative reasoning with 31 questions to be answered in 62 minutes with a score range of 6 to 51 with problem solving and data sufficiency. And then you have your verbal reasoning, which you have 36 questions to be answered in 65 minutes. Again, the score scaling is ranging from the score ranges between 6 to 51. In this, you have critical reasoning, reading comprehension, and sentence correction. Next, you have your integrated reasoning with 12 questions to be answered in 30 minutes and score of 1 to 8, which is not a part of your 200 to total score of 200 to 800. And then you have last your analytical writing, which consists of an essay, the argument essay, that you have to write in 30 minutes and a score range of 0 to 6. And total of 80 questions that you have to answer in 3 hours and 7 minutes. Let's take a look at the Focus Edition. And here you can see just 3 sections. So you still have your quantitative reasoning, you still have your verbal reasoning, but you'd see a new data insights section. But we'll dive into what exactly is there. With respect to quantitative reasoning, 21 questions, only problem solving, just quickly note that, right? Verbal reasoning, you have about 23 questions and only critical reasoning and reading comprehension. In data insights, you'd see some familiar questions from your integrated reasoning, that's your multi-source reasoning, table analysis, graphics interpretation, and your two-part analysis. Plus the data sufficiency that you have seen your quantitative reasoning kind of has made its way into the data insights. All of the 3 sections has the score range between 60 to 90, and each section timing is 45 minutes. The total score range, you'd find the difference here, 205 to 805, and 1 hour shorter than the current version of the exam, which is 2 hours and 15 minutes only. So when this need for this a shorter version of the GMAT exam actually took place, the idea is also to ensure that we focus on certain skill sets, or we hyper focus on certain necessary skill sets like the critical thinking, data literacy, and problem solving, skills that are considered essential both by the business schools as well as the employers. So this new form of the test is the best indicator of your success. So as you can see, no new question types, but an updated calibration to focus on these key skill sets. So the lesser relevant content areas like your sentence correction, your analytical writing and assessment, your geometry in problem solving, the quantitative reasoning, those actually go off. So with that, let's actually take a look at the 4 key areas of improvements in the test-taking experience that I'm super excited to share with you. The very first one is your question review and edit. So the question review and edit feature includes bookmarking. When you are attempting a section, you will have the ability to bookmark questions that you're unsure about and kind of like want to get back to later. So once you complete your section, you can go back to those questions within the remaining section time. So you can review any question, whether you have bookmarked it or not, and change up to 3 responses. The next one is you're selecting the section order. So in the current version of the GMAT, you have 3 specified orders that you can work with or you can select. But in the newer version, you have 6 combinations that you can work with. You can determine what you want to do first, second, and third. Important point to highlight here is in the current version, you have 2 optional breaks of 8 minutes. In this new version, you have 1 10-minute break, which you can take up to the first section or the second section, right? The third one, and my personal favorite, the improved score report. So the official candidate score report now offers detailed performance insights, and that's included in the GMAT Focus Edition registration without any additional cost. So right now, these performance insights actually come at an additional purchase of the enhanced score report, but the official score report in the Focus will include detailed performance insights by section, content type, time management, and more, right? So you'll be able to assess your strengths and weaknesses and a lot more from this feature. And the last one, a lot of flexibility, and I'm sure that a lot of people would be happy with this as well, easier score sending. So you no longer have to actually select the programs for score sending before you sit for the exam at the test center. So both the test center exam as well as the online testing, in both of these, you would be able to send your additional 5 free score reports by selecting the schools up to 48 hours after receiving your official score on the MBA.com. And along with this change, earlier, that is in the current version, you have, when you send your score report to the business schools, the business school actually gets your entire history of GMAT scores. But in the new version, you can select the score that you want to send to the school. So a lot of flexibility, control, and personalization with respect to the features. Now, let's pause for a moment and quickly look at what has changed and what has not changed. So right in the beginning, I talked about the acceptance, big numbers, that still remains the same. All the programs that I spoke to you about, all the numbers that I spoke to you about is applicable to the GMAT Exam Focus Edition as well. The delivery methods, online and offline, that still stays the same. We talked about the structure. Some, the testing design is still question adaptive. I'm going to skip a few of these and get down to the attempts because we've talked about the others. There's 5 attempts in a rolling 12-month calendar period. That still remains the same with a 16-day waiting period for between both. The 8 lifetime attempt limit, that still remains the same, and it is applicable across both the versions of the GMAT exam, right? And the accommodations also remain the same for special needs. The fees are also at par with the current version of the GMAT exam, depending upon the region that you are at. So as you can see, the registration policies do not really change as much. You will have the testing appointments open up 6 months in advance. The ID requirements do not change. So a lot of comfort in that. So let's switch gears a bit and quickly discuss the changes to the scoring. To give you an overview about it, the total score now will be a combination of the quantitative reasoning, the verbal reasoning, and the data insights. So your total score will now range from 205 to 805 in increments of 10, while each of the 3 section score scales range from 60 to 90 in increments of 1. As you can see, the scales on the updated version of the GMAT Focus Edition is very distinct as a result of all of the things that I mentioned to you in the previous slides. And the new scale allows you and the business schools to distinguish between both the versions and make sure that the evaluations are appropriate, fair, and based on the current version of the GMAT. What this means is that you cannot directly compare the scores from both the versions of the exam, right? Then you might be wondering, then how do I really compare my relative competitiveness across the 2 versions of the exam? You can do this by linking and comparing both the versions using percentile rankings rather than the scores themselves. So the percentile rankings indicate the percentage of test takers that you perform better than, right? So you have this concordance table available on MBA.com if you want to kind of like understand if you have the current version and what it means for the Focus Edition. You can clearly see here why percentile rankings are important, because if a school is looking for a competitiveness to be at a 90th percentile, they would no longer be looking at 700 and above. They would be looking at something like mid 600s in the Focus Edition, right? And if you're wondering if the schools do know about it, they absolutely do. They have worked on this, with us on the Focus Edition as well as the score scaling. And GMAT has worked very closely with schools and other partners to make sure that they are also aware exactly how they need to look at the scores. So in fact, the scores from either version of the GMAT exam are going to be considered because you have your 5-year validity period, right? So if you're taking the current version now, the 5-year validity period still holds for the current version. The schools know how to look at the competitiveness across both the versions, right? So you gotta, I think I've given you a quick but comprehensive understanding of the GMAT Focus Edition in this small gap. What do we have for you to get your prep kickstarted for the Focus? We have already launched the Focus Prep materials on June 6th. You will get your free practice set test 1 and 2. You also have your official starter kit with few video lessons as well as 70 practice questions that you can sort by difficulty sets, question type. Do make sure that you create your account on mba.com and avail this free resource.